In April 1990, Nirvana began recording a follow-up to Bleach. During the sessions, Channing got upset he wasn't allowed to be more involved in the songwriting, and Cobain and Novoselic became disappointed in his drumming, so they parted ways. In July, they recorded the single Silver with Mudhoney drummer. In July, they recorded the single Silver with Mudhoney Silver.
And now I understand what some of you meant by YouTube being saturated with Nirvana videos from people who clearly are not fans. There have been some people who have questioned my 90-ness. I don't know if you think maybe I'm younger than I really am, but I'm a pretty old dude. Here's some old footage to prove that I've been a rocker from back in the day. Obviously, this says nothing about my intelligence or my journalistic abilities, but my point is, unlike the person in the intro, I actually care about this subject, and it's things I've been thinking about since I was a little kid. So without further ado, let's get on to Nirvana series number 5. I'm going to answer one question before we move on, and only because it's related to current events in the news. Where am I from? Okay, so I actually currently live in Cincinnati, Ohio. Go Bearcats. But I was raised in the small bohemian college town of Athens, Ohio. Ohio University Bobcats. Interesting fact, Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Joe Burrow is from the town I was raised in. Matter of fact, my younger cousin Steven went to high school with him just a couple years ago, so I thought that was pretty cool. I'm sure that they are partying in Athens today. Let's go ahead, get started with Nirvana series number 5. It's April 2nd. It's the wee morning hours, and Kurt arrives back in Seattle. He takes taxi to his Seattle Lake Washington Boulevard home. It's 6 in the morning. If you want to get real technical, 6:05 a.m., Kurt walks into the guest bedroom where Michael Callie DeWitt and Jessica Hopper are asleep after a night of partying and binging, sits down on the bed, and according to them, they can't really remember what he said. Jessica does say that she woke up and she told Kurt that Courtney was worried about him and that he needed to call her. I found several very interesting articles, and they mainly say the same thing. I want to direct your attention to this specific one by rocknyc.live. This paragraph: here is the timeline of the events according to biographer Charles R. Cross. Kurt was home on Saturday, April 2nd, only 6 days before he was found dead, and went to Callie's room around 6 a.m., sat on the end of the bed, and even sang "Hey Skinhead Girl" to Jessica, obviously jokingly, who asked him to call Courtney because she was freaking out. So Jessica asked Kurt to call Courtney. They made a call, but Courtney wasn't taking any calls. He calls the hotel, and they say, "Sorry, she's not taking calls right now." So you're telling me that you have learned that your husband has walked away from rehab, you think he has a shotgun, you think he's suicidal, but you decide to not accept phone calls at your hotel room. Okay, that's interesting. And remember that this is according mainly to Jessica Hopper. After the fact, when everybody finds out he's passed away, they go to her and they're like, "Well, what did he say? You woke up, what did he say?" That's the story she gave. "Oh, I told him to call Courtney. We tried to call Courtney. She wasn't accepting phone calls. Let's first go ahead and look at who Michael Callie DeWitt and Jessica Hopper are. Like, let's take a look at their background and see what kind of people we're dealing with. Because phone records prove that Callie and Courtney were in contact 8 times on April 2nd, more than any other day the entire week. So let us begin with Jessica Hopper. A quick Wikipedia search tells us that her mother was a newspaper editor, her father was a journalist, her stepfather was an attorney. Seems like she must have had a pretty good life. Seems like she was raised in a pretty educated household. To this day, Jessica Hopper is actually a rock music critic. She's even written for magazines such as Spin, the Chicago Tribune, all kinds of publications. Okay, well, let's dig a little deeper and see what else we can find about Jessica Hopper. Okay, so Jessica Hopper is only 18 years old in 1994 when Kurt dies. And I wanted to know, how does the daughter of a newspaper editor, a journalist, and stepdaughter to an attorney meet Courtney Love? And I found a couple different articles that tell me she was actually a troubled teenager. She got highly involved in the punk scene. At around 15 or 16 years of age, Courtney Love took her under her wing. Clothed her, fed her, housed her, let her travel with her, got her into heroin. So we come to find out that Hopper is actually a teenaged, angst-ridden, punk-rocking runaway who is impressionable and looking for her place in the world, who Courtney Love is harboring. A minor. If a man did that, if a 20-something-year-old man took a 15-year-old girl under his wing, oh my God, what would you think of that man? If a 20-something-year-old man took a 15-year-old boy under his wing that he wasn't related to, that he didn't know any of their family. So we have to ask ourselves, what does Courtney get out of this relationship by spending money on this girl? This girl was raised in a house of journalists and editors, and her parents have passed their talent along to her. Jessica is trying to get a fanzine published. Courtney wants to be famous, wants to be able to control the articles that are written about her. And she finds in Jessica this impressionable, young punk rocker girl who has a talent for writing, who is struggling to find her way in the world. And Courtney takes her under her wing and actually pays for Jessica's fanzine to be published. Los Angeles Review of Books. For Jessica Hopper, running into Courtney Love was more than just another celebrity sighting. Hopper was finishing up her first tour for her new book, the first collection of criticism by a living female rock critic. And she was making her way through LAX, the airport in Los Angeles, to catch a flight home to Chicago. I'm going up the escalator and I look up and there's Courtney Love, Hopper recalls. Way back in the 90s, Courtney supported my fanzine. She paid for the printing of my third issue. I was in 11th grade. Hopper basically owes her introduction into the rock world around all these famous musicians, around this punk rock party lifestyle. She owes it all to Courtney. None of it would have happened without Courtney. Jessica Hopper's dream is to be a music journalist, and Courtney Love can make or break her. So let's look at Callie DeWitt. And in one of the same articles, we find out that Callie DeWitt met Courtney about 4 years prior to Kurt's death. Same situation. Underage. He begins as a roadie for Hole. She takes him on as a roadie. Okay. Now we also know that Courtney slept with Callie DeWitt. What you may have not known is that when she slept with him, Courtney was in her 20s. How old Callie was? We don't really know. Did she wait? Did she not wait until his 18th birthday? Both DeWitt and Hopper appear to have been befriended by Mr. Cobain's widow, Courtney Love, when they were minors. DeWitt asserts that Love took him under her wing approximately 4 years prior to Mr. Cobain's death. Yeah, I bet she did, when he was 16. Hopper indicates that Love befriended her approximately 2 years prior to Mr. Cobain's passing when she was either 15 or 16. Ms. Love has a history of violence and manipulation and engaged in a number of suspicious behaviors near the time of her husband's death, including misrepresenting her identity in a missing persons report filed with the Seattle Police Department, and we'll get to that really soon. So as you can see, both Michael Callie DeWitt and Jessica Hopper were sort of troubled teenagers with no real clear path. They even got into heroin at very, very young ages, probably because of Courtney, but Courtney uses this to her advantage. She says, I'm going to give you guys careers. One of you can be the most famous musician on Earth's nanny, and the other can publish her fanzine, and I'm going to fund your lives to make sure that you are successful. We all know that Courtney is very manipulative. We all know that she lies. What you may not know is that Courtney often uses her money and heroin addiction to control the people she has around her. In return, she commands absolute loyalty. Whatever you do, don't betray me or I will cut you off and you will have nothing. So now that we know a little bit about Michael Callie DeWitt and Jessica Hopper and where their loyalties lie, we're going to move forward to April 3rd, the day that Courtney Love hires private investigator Tom Grant, Easter Sunday. We will be referring back to Callie DeWitt and Jessica Hopper throughout this video.